and I hope extended this out to your network, because this is obviously a very, very important topic that we're talking about today, and I know it's one that you're all kind of focusing on within your networks as well. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Sharon Vivett. I've known Sharon for a number of years. She's from an organisation called Henpicked. And if any of you are looking for an organisation that you should be working on when it comes to menopause, Henpicked is kind of top of my list. So Henpicked focuses on menopause in the workplace. They really focus around supporting employers in becoming menopause friendly, so to follow kind of best practice standards. So whether that's policies or guidance documents, educating or training colleagues, providing the right support, and more importantly, keeping that conversation going. So they're in their 5th year. They work with a wide range of public and private sector employers, both large and small. Sharon, I say, passionate about the cause. We've just been having a great conversation about midlife before you guys joined us. Obviously, she's interested in female health, wellness, particularly focused on the menopause, which also led her to create Good Midlife Vibes, which is a community and platform for women to help one another by sharing their wisdom, stories, tips and support, which is what obviously we're all about at Gender Networks. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to back off and I'm going to hand over to Sharon. Sharon's going to share some slides with you. Probably going to run for around, how long are you going to run for, Sharon? You can tell me.
About 45 minutes, and then the quick Q&A at the end. And
then we're going to Q&A, but what you can do is, if you think of questions as you go, pop them in the chat box. And then what I'll do is I'll just come on the end. Obviously, thanks, Sharon. Leona will send out Sharon's details so that you can get hold of her yourselves. But again, another bonus session from us at Gender Networks, and I hope you enjoy it. And a big thank you in advance, Sharon, for joining us. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much. I don't know how to follow that, and thank you. And it's absolutely fantastic to see so many people on the session. So I'm just going to share my screen there. Hopefully everybody can see my slides. And yes, if you've got any questions at all, there's no such thing as the wrong question to ask. Please pop them into chat, and I will keep my eye on the chat as we go through, but answer any questions that we have at the end. So thank you so much for inviting me, Vanessa. I'm absolutely delighted. As you say, we've known each other for a while. I'm one of the directors here at Henpicked Menopause in the Workplace, and as you said, I'm absolutely passionate about helping individuals, but particularly organisations, to support their employees really who are experiencing menopausal symptoms, to help them to lead their best lives at work and have the careers that they want as well. It's absolutely crucial that we keep talent in the workplace. We need positive midlife and beyond female role models at work. We don't want talent and experience to walk out of the door, and we don't want them to walk past our doors. So we want to be able to attract the best talent that we have, that we possibly can. And by putting diversity, equality, inclusion and your colleagues' well-being centre stage, it does demonstrate your organisation's dedication really to making your place of work the best it can be. And as I say, to attract that great talent and to retain those that are experienced at work. And menopause support is a really big part of this, and there are an increasing number of employers realising that there is mutual benefits that menopause support at work can bring. What we need to bear in mind is that everyone's experience of menopause is different. We experience different symptoms, we have different views or philosophies around how we manage them, and we have different medical histories, and also different cultures as well may understand menopause in different ways too. So I think we need to also recognise and be respectful of the decisions that people make around menopause and their philosophies when it comes to managing symptoms. And that's what we do as an organisation really. We help you put the right support in place, we help you to train managers to have great conversations, how to train your advocates and champions to keep the conversation going at work. And there will be some top tips as to how you can do that and how as a business you can become menopause friendly. But one thing I do always like to say is that throughout all our presentations, we sometimes use the terms women, female and her. However, it's clear to us that this session is absolutely inclusive of everyone who goes through either menopause or who experiences menopausal type symptoms as a result of significant hormonal change, and that the language that I use is really just purely for the flow of the presentation. And that's the only bit really at the end that I want to be clear in terms of what the session is all about. So what are we going to cover in the time that we have? I was just going to keep an eye on the clock to make sure that we do leave enough time for questions. So why do we need to talk about menopause? Why is it urgent and important? I'm going to give you some facts around menopause. I'm also going to give you some signposting in terms of how to manage symptoms, whether that's for yourself personally or people that you work with. How do you as a business provide the right support during menopause? And ask the question, is your organisation menopause friendly? And the checklist that you see there, that's a great way to ask questions within your organisation. It's a lovely tick list for you to recognise maybe where there might be some gaps in your organisation, or to celebrate all the great things that you are doing as an organisation. And I'll provide that in a PDF for everyone post session. It also acts as a brilliant roadmap. And we have one organisation that says they just followed it verbatim, and it was one of the easiest projects that they've ever rolled out, and helped other workplace conversations to take place, not just around menopause. So just to ensure that you can hear me, I'd like you to pop into chat. What words would you associate with menopause? So if I said to you menopause, what would be the very first thing that came into your mind? So I'm going to have a look at some of these answers that are coming through, and it's really nice to see that I'm not alone, that you are all there as well, just to make sure that things are working. So it's very interesting to see those words coming through, but it's not surprising. I would say that 99, possibly 100% of those are negative. They are negative words. I think the very first one that went into chat was old. And there's a lot of anxiety, hot flushes all over the place, brain fog, etc. So thank you very much for that. And I think that demonstrates why we need to talk about menopause at work, why it's urgent and important. Because if we as individuals have negative perspective of menopause, then that is going to cascade out through society. So our job as menopause in the workplace is to change hearts and minds through education, and providing the right form of education will empower individuals to take control of menopause, so that menopause isn't controlling them, to give the right training to line managers so that they understand the challenges that people have experiencing menopausal symptoms, and putting that right signposting and support in place. And there's 4 compelling reasons, and I'm going to talk briefly about each of these in turn. But it's our job to start changing this perception of menopause, and the only way we can do that is to talk about it, and to talk about it, and to talk about it some more. Now, I'm in a very fortunate position that I get to talk about menopause every single day. And the organisations that we engage with, the people that I talk to every day of the week, are really looking at menopause in terms of embedding it into the culture. How can they make this change, not just for now, but into the future? And how can menopause become this unremarkable conversation, one that we can have just like we do about the weather? And that's through talking about it, and also engaging with our senior leadership teams, getting male allies on board, having advocates that are all championing the benefits of talking about menopause at work. So what's different now than, say, 100 years ago? And this is the most compelling case, really, the demographic case. Menopausal age women are the fastest growing workforce demographic. 8 out of 10 menopausal women are in work. And if you look there in the 21st century at where menopause comes in a woman's life on average, and I will come on to age a little bit later on, it's at that midlife point, often where we're doing it all. We have the teenagers potentially at home. We're looking after elderly parents or relatives or friends. We're looking for the career change. looking for promotion, running teams, for example. And menopause comes on top of that time of life. And many people don't actually appreciate that what they're feeling is down to menopause. They think it's because they're just busy, but it's that life expectancy. You know, we have a 1 in 8 chance of living to be 100, which is, for many, could be 50 years post-menopause. So how do we live our best life? You know, what can we do now in midlife that will enable us to be living our best life for as long as we possibly can? And for the first time in history, we are the generation that are experiencing menopause like we are now. You know, if you look at that life expectancy 100 years ago, menopause did very much come at the end of a woman's life. So you can kind of understand why there is this association with, well, isn't that for old people? And that's why we need to educate not just those that are experiencing menopause and those that are in midlife, but also the younger generation, and also, you know, the men that are in our lives. Because yes, 51% of us will experience menopause firsthand, but actually the entire population will experience menopause, because I can guarantee that everyone on this call either works with, lives with, or knows a woman. So it is important for us to really think about how we keep these conversations going. And then if we look at the business case, you know, there is evidence and research that has been done that suggests that on average, it's about 30,000 to replace someone that leaves. Now, we think that that's probably a little bit on the low side, but it doesn't really matter about the cost. It's more about, you know, losing that really experienced individual. So it's not just the cost of, you know, the recruitment side of things, but also the training side of things as well. So how do we retain great staff within our workplaces? How do we attract really good candidates? And particularly in the climate as it is at the moment, we want to ensure that we have the right individuals within our organisation. And of course, it supports an inclusive culture and can reduce time off as well. And you know, there are stats and figures that demonstrate that many women are not using menopause as a reason for absence, because there isn't the facility to be able to report that in a sickness and absence perspective. So it is looking at how can we help from a time off reduction perspective. And also it does improve performance and motivation. People want to work in an organisation that feels supportive. And as businesses, it does help to reduce that tribunal risk as well, which, you know, is often not the reason why businesses come to us and start talking to us about why they want to put menopause support in place. It's usually kind of like the fourth on the list for them. It's very much about doing the right thing for their employees. There's the legal case covered under the Equality Act 2010, protected characteristics of sex, age and disability. Now, we're not suggesting that menopause is a disability, but for some women, symptoms can be debilitating. There's uncapped compensation, managers are personally liable, and it has to always be on a case-specific basis. And when we look at the successful plaintiff cases, it's always been where the process has broken down, where a manager hasn't followed best practice. And what is the reputational cost to a business? Nobody wins when anything goes to court. So it's how do we ensure that we are following best practice, that we have the right policy and guidance and support in place so that that eventuality does not come into play. It's the right thing to do. This is most of the conversation that we have. It is a way for us to demonstrate that we really are taking the well-being of our employees seriously. And you can see there from some of the feedback that we have from our sessions, it is that penny drop moment. It's that realization that actually, you know, what I've been experiencing here and struggling through is actually down to hormonal change. And presenteeism is a real challenge with menopause, where you've got women that are literally dragging themselves into work. And what is that effect on business, particularly if we look at health and safety and we look at fatigue associated with menopause? You know, we do have to take that health and safety concern as a real area of focus for businesses, whether it be the individual themselves that's fatigued, or maybe the partner of the individual that is suffering fatigue because their partner has been keeping them awake at night. So just some little thoughts around health and safety there for people to consider. I said I'd keep an eye on chat, so I was just going to have a quick look at the chat there, but I will come back to that in a moment if necessary. So one of our presentations would not be a presentation if I didn't tell you a little bit about menopause itself. So it's really important for us to understand what menopause terms actually mean. There's a lot of myth out there, there's a lot of misunderstanding. So you can see there that menopause itself is actually a one-day event. Now, for those of you on the call that might be going through menopause, there's probably a lot of scoffing going on, because it would be nice, wouldn't it, if it was actually a one-day event. But all joking aside, what I mean by that is that menopause is the day after a woman has been period-free for 12 months. The next day is classed as menopause. Menopause means the ceasing of menstruation, menopause. But it's actually perimenopause, a much lesser known term that can really cause severe symptoms in women. And actually, it's at a time leading up to menopause. So peri meaning around, that women don't often actually associate with how they're feeling with their symptoms until they start to read around the subject, or maybe have a look at a list of symptoms, that they start to join up the dots. And that's where we often have a penny drop moment in our colleague awareness sessions, where you have somebody sitting there going, oh, okay, I've got nearly all of those symptoms. I just thought maybe I was doing too much, or maybe I was a bit too stressed, etc., etc. So it's about, as a business, being able to provide really great quality resources so that when it's relevant for an individual, or actually on times like World Menopause Day or Women's Health Week, for example, you can actually put up a list of symptoms. Because it's that recognizing and understanding. Once we understand and we've joined up those dots, actually then we can start to make a plan. It empowers us to take back control and say, right, this is what I would like to do. This is how I'm going to manage symptoms. And I will come on to that a little bit later on. And then post-menopause, the rest of our lives. And some women experiencing symptoms many, many years post-menopause as well. And that's why managing symptoms is so important, and not to just keep saying, I'll deal with it tomorrow, I'll deal with it next week, I'll get round to it sometime soon. Now is the time to take control if you feel that's how you can join up those dots and identify that actually you are somewhere in this stage on your menopause journey. And it is a journey, and symptoms can change throughout, and I'll come on to symptoms. So the average age of menopause in the UK is 51. Most experience menopause naturally between the ages of 45 and 55. However, there are many women that experience menopause much, much earlier. So pre-menopause is, women under the age of 40, but also very early menopause, so premature ovarian insufficiency, POI. And it's apparent that women at any age can experience significant hormonal change and experience menopause. Any of you that saw the Davina program, there was a lady talking there, I can never remember her name, which is terrible. Hayley, I think her name is, because I follow her on Instagram. She was 14. So for women, young women themselves, please don't think that this is for older women. And for managers, please don't think that because you've got young people in your team, it's not relevant for you. 3 in 4 women experience symptoms, 1 in 4 serious symptoms, and those symptoms can be life-altering for some. As I said earlier, everyone's experience is different. And what we need to appreciate is that actually 1 in 4 don't experience any symptoms at all. So just because someone is of menopausal age doesn't necessarily mean that they will be experiencing symptoms. And also, you know, because somebody's behavior is different, or their personality has changed, or they're having time off work, doesn't necessarily mean it's down to menopause either. But if you look there at the stats, you know, 47% saying they do not want to talk to their line manager about menopause, and 45% saying that they felt that their symptoms had a negative impact at work. It is a big challenge for workplaces. And that's why for us, it's so important to give you some practical tips in terms of how you can provide really great support and signposting. Now, menopause symptoms, the official number is 34. You get many more because they're broken down into subcategories, divided though very much into 2 camps, the physical and the psychological symptoms. Women often saying to us that they know what to do about the physical symptoms, like the night sweats and hot flushes, for example. You could have a desk fan, you could open a window, you could take off a layer, you can now buy self-wicking clothing, for example. But it's actually the psychological symptoms that seem to be the most troubling for women in terms of knowing how to deal with them. The brain fog, the problems with recall, making women very worried about early onset dementia, for example. Anxiety and feeling low, real challenges when it comes to the working environment. And there it is, tiredness, fatigue as well, poor concentration, all real challenges for those at work going through menopause. And, you know, even things like tinnitus, clumsiness, for example, all ways to undermine confidence. And this is why we're seeing so many women leaving work, 1 in 4 considering leaving. The latest research is demonstrating almost 1 million, 900,000 women have left work because of their menopause. And many women not wanting to go for promotion, even though they've maybe been put forward for promotion. So it is, again, as I say, a great place to raise awareness, and even just to put up, you know, symptoms poster. There are some great ones out there, and many to be found on our website, which again I can provide lots of links. So if there's something specific that you would like, if you can pop it into chat, maybe Leona, you can just keep an eye, and at the end we can collate these, you know, I can then have a look at the chat and make sure that we send across as much as we can in terms of resources for you. And that's the big takeaway, really. It's about reading around the subjects, learning, but it always has to be from a trusted source when it comes to managing. And I'll come on to managing symptoms in a little while, and some sources that are available that we can provide. But if you look there at those top 5 symptoms, so that was a survey that we did a few years ago with the TUC and some of the universities, fatigue very much being the top there, but also that focus and concentration and anxiety and worry really affecting people at work. But it's not just how symptoms can affect you at work, it's also how is the working environment impacting somebody going through menopause. And, you know, changing times with COVID. So we've seen some people really enjoying working at home because they've got control of the temperature. There aren't the wars over, you know, ventilation or over the air conditioning, for example, taking a break maybe when you can. But then other environments, wearing PPE, for example, maybe being tied into working environments, not being able to take a break. What about those working on the shop floor? And, you know, facilities maybe having a bit of understanding in terms of what somebody might be asking for. If they are asking for a desk fan, maybe looking at, you know, a small concentrated desk fan like a USB, for example, rather than the big old style fans that affect everybody. But what about things like desk chairs? You know, if there's been an accident, because unfortunately, you know, menstruation on the particularly in perimenopause can be a real challenge in the working environment. So what can we do as businesses to ensure that our processes are as friendly as possible when it comes to reasonable adjustments? and noise as well, and the lack of access to natural light can all be a real challenge. Irritation of noise can be very much exacerbated as we go through menopause. So being mindful of that in terms of work environments, if you've got people that are in those noisy environments. But as I've said before, everyone is different, and and also everyone's menopause is very different as well. And, you know, for some, it's unlikely that you will experience all the symptoms all the time, but symptoms can change as the years go on, and symptoms can wax and wane, for example. And that's why, again, it's good to have a view in terms of what symptoms to look out for, so you know what to do with them, do about those symptoms as and when they might come to the fore. You know, symptoms don't last forever. That's really key here. They can also be managed. So, for example, you don't have to wait for periods to stop to maybe go and talk to the GP about HRT, for example. That's a myth. So again, it's about knowing the facts, and I'm going to come on just a little bit to managing symptoms in a moment, because I'm conscious that I want to talk more about being a menopause friendly employer. But as I say, you can't have a presentation without talking a little bit about menopause. And the key there at the bottom, symptoms do not have to be really bad or unbearable before you go and ask for help and support. And I think that's really, really important. If you're experiencing symptoms personally, please don't leave it. Please don't wait. Help and support is absolutely out there. It's knowing the right place to go and find it. And this has always been the challenge in the past. But I think with programs like Davina and the world of social media, you know, if I look at World Menopause Day this year compared to last year, compared to 3 or 4 years ago, there was a huge amount more around menopause and people talking about their own experience, and many more pathways to support for individuals, but also many more businesses putting help and support in place as well, and offering such great service to their employees. So I'm not, again, I can see the chat is going mad, which is absolutely brilliant. And it's really nice to see people sharing their experience and ideas and suggestions, but I won't take a look at those right this moment in time. But as I say, Leona, if there's anything that really comes up that, you know, you feel that you need to interrupt me, please feel free to do that. It's absolutely fine, no problem. Now, we often ask, you know, do you think there's such a thing as the male menopause? And, you know, the definition of menopause, as I said earlier, is the end of periods. So although men don't go through the menopause, there's not a menopause. Obviously, andropause is very much a condition, but it's very different to how women experience the menopause. And that's because men's hormones, as a general rule, decline over a much longer period of time, for example. And even though you might say, blimey, 4 to 8 years, well, that's a very long time compared to the decline in male hormones. It actually is quite a short period of time. And because they start a lot earlier and they finish a lot later, it is unusual for men to experience menopausal type symptoms. However, there are some caveats to that, and testosterone deficiency syndrome is something that men can experience, which does result in these very similar menopausal type symptoms. So if you know someone or you're experiencing it yourself, then please do go and speak to the GP about that. And you know, I've been in a few sessions where I've had men say, actually, I've got quite a few of those symptoms. One was going through TDS, but also we've had men at sessions that have gone through certain types of cancer treatment, for example, and hot flushes can be really quite prevalent for men in that instance. And there's also that we need to you know, understand that not everyone that experiences menopause identifies as a woman, but they still may have the appropriate biological makeup to experience menopause. And also some trans people will have had medical interventions, such as hormone therapy and also surgeries. But not all trans people want this or are able to, and there may be particular issues that they may experience going through the menopause. So I think it's good for us to include everyone in the conversation, and just to recognise that actually anyone experiencing significant hormonal change can experience menopausal type symptoms. Okay. So let's have a quick look at managing symptoms. I'm just keeping an eye on the time to make sure I can cover everything off for you. Now, what we have to be mindful of here is that everyone's personal philosophy is different. For many, it is a combination of all these three areas. For some, the medical approach is not open to them because of their past medical history. And what we do in our sessions, when we do our general colleague awareness sessions and our line manager sessions, we talk about what options are available to individuals. And we talk very much about, you know, this is the option that you have around HRT, these are the complementary options, and these are the lifestyle. And we give the same amount of attention to all of these because for many, they're equally as important. I think the one where we get the soapbox out the most is probably about lifestyle and diet, to be perfectly honest, and that they do and can coexist very much. So when we look at medical, it's very much, you know, the first line option is HRT. Reading the NICE guidelines is very important if you're going to talk to the GP about HRT, and understanding your risk versus benefit as well. And we have some great resources that we provide organisations around the risk versus benefit of taking HRT. And many women saying it's a lifesaver. As I say, some women can't take it because of their medical history. And that's why for us as a business, we never give individual advice because it's inappropriate to do so at work. And we never recommend that people take HRT. We just provide the facts. And that's what's really key when it comes to HRT. We also provide signposting in terms of what are your options. Yes, you can go and talk to the GP. We know that some GPs are not that easy to either get an appointment or they don't have the knowledge around HRT. So what other options are there out there if that first line of going to the GP doesn't work? So we provide that information in those awareness sessions, so very in depth. But what we do run actually is a HRT masterclass where we do have a specialist menopause doctor come and talk to those that are interested in learning more about HRT, and they then can provide much more in-depth information about what the benefits of HRT might be for an individual, what the risks are, and further signposting as well. So that is certainly an option and works really well in a business environment. Then we look at and talk about complementary. So we look at herbal options. We look at things like talking to your medical herbalist, or you know, you can also talk to other medical professionals that can provide complementary advice. So, you know, there's not as much research on the complementary, but anecdotally, lots and lots of really great ways of managing symptoms. So we talk about, you know, things like herbal medicine, et cetera, on those sessions. And then, as I say, the lifestyle is always such a big area that we talk about in the awareness sessions, very much around looking at what we're eating and how what we are eating is impacting on symptoms. How we can look to reduce our stress, for example. We look at the right types of exercise. We talk about, you know, cognitive behavioral therapies and yogas and all those types of lifestyle factors that I'm sure as businesses you have access to, you offer already in other areas. How can you incorporate those into your menopause program? And again, we have masterclasses on resilience, because resilience is a really great tool when it comes to menopause. And what's our attitude to, say, a hot flush? Do we hide away in shame, or can we actually style it out a little bit and talk about how it's happening and understand why it's happening, for example? And also we have a nutrition and lifestyle masterclass as well, which is really popular, because that is an area that is well, it's very high on the agenda for so many of us at the moment, and you know, it's really actually very interesting and informative as well, and it's what we can do as businesses to ensure that we're again providing that right signposting to manage symptoms. And you know, how confident are your line managers to have a conversation first off on menopause, but also to provide, do they know where to get access to the right level of information and provide that right signposting? So how can we as a business become menopause friendly? And as I say, I will provide everyone with this checklist after the session. So the 6 key focus areas are, the first one is policy. You know, is it clear how your organisation supports menopausal women? Now, it's not law to have a policy, so guidance is absolutely fine. Do you have fact sheets, for example? It needs to be what works best for you as a business. It needs to have the same look and feel, for example. But when it comes to the relevant information, don't reinvent the wheel. We've got tools that can help you to put right policy and guidance in place. So what do you already have? What is the best practice for you? Who's responsible for your policies? More importantly than anything, where are they stored? You know, are they easily accessible, or are they buried somewhere that nobody's ever seen them and nobody's ever read them? So that's really key. How do you keep conversations going by signposting to where policies are, or guidance? And particularly for your managers, do they understand what the process is and how do they get access to those documents? And what's the sign-off process as well? The second area is to create a culture where menopause can be talked about openly. So do you have that culture where it can be spoken about? Have you got senior male allies? Have you got young male allies? Have you got young women? Have you got those that are going through menopause talking about their experiences, for example? Do you have leaflets or videos? Do you have e-learning, for example, that you can ensure that people have access to the right relevant information when it's prevalent to them? How do employees get that information? How do they share stories? You know, do you have a Yammer group, for example? Do you have a support group? I mean, I come across some with the most amazing names, absolutely fantastic names that people come up with for support groups and networks where people can share experiences and stories. And I was on one last week with London South Bank University, and I just sat there in the background and listened to what people were talking about, because it's so powerful when you listen to people sharing their experiences. And what about diary dates for your organisation? So we say that there's 3 opportunities a year. There's World Menopause Day, obviously, in October. You've got Women's Health Week, but you've also got International Women's Day as well. So do you run events to celebrate those days, either in person or online? You know, do you give away you know, books or, you know, materials, etc., just to keep those conversations going and get that culture? And this is back in the old days when we could all get together in rooms. And now a lot of our training, well, 99% of it is still online. We have run a few sessions again recently, but you can see here the real mix from panel discussion events to we've got champions training and advocates there, top right, champions at the bottom. We've got general awareness. We've got people coming together with round tables. So there's lots of different ways that you can keep those conversations going and raise awareness and have stories sharing. And providing the right training and support. You know, do your managers and support teams have the right knowledge? Do they have the skills to be able to talk about menopause? Do they feel confident? You know, do they know what they need to do at the right time, for example? And how are you going to make that accessible for your managers, whether it be via workshops, whether it be via small cohort groups, whether it be, you know, digital, online delivery, e-learning, for example, advocates delivering training within the organizations, or champions, for example, really, you know, offering that different pathway to support. Not everybody wants to talk to their manager, not everybody wants to make it official by talking to HR. So where could they go in your organization? Just in the first instance, say, look, you know, I think I might be experiencing symptoms, I'm not sure, what have we got? You know, and if somebody could pull out a leaflet and say, have you seen this? Or have you looked on the intranet? or have you spoken to blah, 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 blah. Did you know we've got a support group? You know, that is so supportive for somebody, and coming together and understanding that you're not alone is so, so powerful. What about existing support? Do you provide access to occupational health? What EAP support do you have? You know, are they trained on menopause and understand how it can affect somebody at work and how they can help as well? So occupational health, mental health first aiders are another great way to be able to provide help and support. So just really thinking outside of the box a little bit in terms of what areas can we really focus on. And do your employees wear uniforms or have a dress code? You know, can they be adapted to manage hot flushes or cold sweats? Or could they have layering, for example? Are they wearing lots of layers? So is there any way in the environment that that can be adjusted to make it more comfortable? You know, can they have order extra garments, for example? And what about the fabric? But also not just the fabric, but what about the fit? You know, obviously redesigning uniforms is a really big thing, but it can make such a positive impact on individuals and their working environment. In fact, we have got one organisation that have absolutely done just that. And it's available to everybody. It's not just this is the uniform if you're going through menopause, it's available to everyone. So it's just being mindful and thinking about that. And thinking about facilities, you know, I've talked about fans, but what about things like access to cold drinking water, washroom facilities and toilets, for example? You know, do you have sanitary ware that's readily available free of charge? What about having, you know, emergency underwear that they have in some organisations? You know, some very, very creative businesses out there that are putting in just little things that can make life a little bit easier for people. And could you take extra breaks? What about flexible working, for example? I know it's quite prevalent now in organisations, but just thinking around the environment. And just very quickly touching on menopause friendly accreditation. If you feel as an organisation that you want to come on a journey to becoming menopause friendly, then do take a look at what the accreditation looks like. And, you know, it's really a place, it's a membership for those employers who are really looking to embed menopause long term. So when you join the membership, you are instantly recognised as a committed to being menopause friendly employer. And after independent assessment, you'll receive accreditation. This is a very new accreditation, so don't feel that you might be massively behind the curve. It's not the case at all. And whether you've started conversations and don't know where to go next, or whether you haven't even started conversations, or you're just looking for some help and support in terms of policy and guidance, then the membership can provide you with ready-made, already easily accessible resources that are available to download at the click of a button. Why reinvent the wheel when it's already in place, in situ, and working really, really well for lots of businesses? And why not be recognised for your great work? So if you've done it all, then you can just apply for the accreditation and actually celebrate the great work that you already have done and got in place. So, you know, it's a catch-all for organisations, but it's an independent body that provide the accreditation award. And they work, you know, we work in conjunction, we run the membership, but the panel is very much independent, and actually they're very rigorous. So it's a meaningful accreditation, very much so. And what they do is they look at 6 key areas where the accreditation is awarded: culture, policy and practices, training, communications, facilities, and evaluation. And it's the evaluation piece that is really important for businesses, because it's understanding why you started, what you did, and then actually evaluating what the effect that had, not only on individuals, but also on the business as well. And I'd like to end on a positive, because at the beginning, I asked you about word association, didn't I, when it came to menopause? And it's very much about changing our attitude. And I'm very passionate about doing that. That's why I call my blog Good Midlife Vibes, to be honest, because I feel that my own attitude towards my own menopause experience is very different now that I'm empowered than it was when I first started on my journey after I'd had surgical menopause and didn't know anything. So I take people on a journey, but I also help businesses to take people on journeys as well, because, you know, we are very capable in midwife. We have to celebrate that. We've got a huge amount of wisdom and experience, and also great knowledge as well. And we put fabulous on there because we were running a training session and we were talking about word association, and we were talking very much about symptoms. And there was one lady sitting on the front row who said that she was experiencing probably nearly all of the symptoms really severely and having a really terrible time. But she said that she felt absolutely fabulous and that she could still do her job really well, but she might just need a little bit of help and support to be able to do that. And I was fortunate enough, along with Vanessa, to be on the Wellbeing of Women panel discussion with Her Royal Highness Sophie Wessex, the Countess of Wessex. And I quote you what she said to us at the beginning of the panel. Now, I can't remember it verbatim, so I'm going to read it to you. She says that we are fabulous in our 40s, and we're even more fabulous in our 50s, 60s, and 70s. And we need to celebrate that and keep opportunities going for women. We cannot let anyone leave the workplace feeling that they have got to that stage where they just need to slope off into the shadows. And I will leave you with that thought, because I think that is very, very powerful messaging and something that I feel personally really passionate about. So if you need any further information, please just reach out to me, whether it be via email or on LinkedIn. Do please look me up. If you are looking for any information about menopause at work, if you go to our website, there's a huge amount of free resource there. If you have support groups and you would like to provide signposting, we have a brilliant menopause hub over on Henpicked. We have lots of lunch and learns there, all different topics to do with menopause. There are podcasts galore. Feel free to download them and distribute them. And anyone that's interested in accreditation, please do take a look at Menopause Friendly. But thank you very much, Vanessa, for having me.
That's all right. Thank you, Sharon. An absolutely incredibly informative session. I'm sure that everyone has taken something away. Just one of the observations on the chat group, it's just been really nice for the last 45 minutes listening to women share similar stories. I think some of the value is in that, to know that we're not going mad. And another thing on there is, you know, just the conflicting advice that you get from your GPs and your doctors, and how other symptoms can kind of lead you down the path of, actually, that's menopause. Like lots of talk about frozen shoulders and things like that. But one of the questions that kind of came up, and ladies and gents, if you're on the call, please do put some extra questions in there that I can ask Sharon. We've got a few minutes left, around kind of HRT. Now, I know you're not medically trained, so I want to say that to everyone, but HRT, if you're going through cancer, any comments? I know obviously it's completely, whether you're triple negative, whether you're, I believe it's H2, lots of different kind of breast cancers, but any advice around that?
So the advice is to speak to a menopause expert. So book yourself an appointment, ask the GP to refer you. And if the GP won't refer you, then there are other pathways. So you get the private, you get those, there are also organisations that kind of sit between the GP and the private. But the big thing is to go and speak to a menopause expert when it comes to breast cancer and HRT. There are some really great articles which I can share around the myths of HRT and breast cancer. Anyone that knows of Dr. Louise Newson, she has a brilliant app called the Balance app. You can track your symptoms on the Balance app, but she also has a huge amount of resource, particularly around menopause, HRT and breast cancer. Also, Dr. Shazadi Harper is another one to follow. She's very, very good on HRT and breast cancer, as is Dr. Karen Morton as well. So she has Dr. Morton's medical helpline, you've got Dr. Shazadi Harper, and you've got Dr. Louise Newson. Some have very, very long waiting lists. Dr. Morton's is an online that you can pay a subscription, for example. So it's very much about you have to take your medical history and go and talk to the right professional that can cover that. And I can send some links through for some more help and advice on that. No problem at all, Vanessa.
Fantastic. There's a couple of questions in here as well. The observation that you're UK based, you know if there's an equivalent in Canada?
So we, the UK are very much leading the conversation globally about menopause at work. So what I would say is if you have got global audiences, we can absolutely deliver via webinar to global audiences, and we can work in partnership with you in terms of the right messaging. The challenge is that the research on menopause is very much UK based. There's not a lot of research out there in other countries either. And also from an employment law perspective, we have to always point to the UK, but we can include global audiences. But as far as we're aware, we haven't really come across another Henpicked yet in other countries. So I can't really signpost you to anyone else doing what we're doing in other countries, but we can do it here from the UK. We've got a lot of global customers that we provide, you know, the right training and awareness in country that's relevant for them, and we work in partnership. So do reach out and we can talk through more on that.
There's only one Henpicked. That's what we like, Sharon, isn't it? Do you know what's lovely? Just there's a few more questions on the chat, but you know, for obviously younger generations that are on this call, there's a lovely comment here about understanding what her mum's going through. I'm just sitting here thinking maybe I should have got my kids on the call as well. But it's great. I mean, I remember going to a menopause, being invited to a menopause thing with, as you know, Dr. Marion Stewart when I was 30, and I left there absolutely mortified, thinking, well, that's never going to happen to me. And bang, before you know it, I'm like late 40s, and here we go. So there was something else on here around, are you involved in policy lobbying regarding menopause? Are you doing any lobbying or?
No, we don't do lobbying as a business. We work a lot across government, so we have to be very mindful about the lobbying piece. However, we are really supportive of what they're doing. I think it's absolutely fantastic. You know, we've got the parliamentary review, and we've got the parliamentary bill. For those that aren't aware, you know, they've had some great success recently in bringing about change on HRT charges, that now it's going to be a one-time payment for 12 months. They are working towards getting policy mandatory within businesses as well. So, you know, we are supportive of what they're doing, but we personally as a business are not involved in the lobbying side of things.
And anything in particular for ethnic minority groups? I mean, there's a number of kind of groups on Instagram, just for the lady that asked, that I follow. There's Black Menopause and Beyond, which there's also a podcast there as well. And then there's also Black Women in Menopause as well. But obviously there's other ethnic minority groups. So anything on that, Sharon?
So we did some work with the University of Bradford, and I've got a really good case study on that, which I can send across. And so we have got experience of working with other groups, absolutely. And we can share that information in terms of what we did to help them at the University of Bradford. You're right in mentioning everyone that you've talked about in terms of, you know, bringing everybody into that conversation and being mindful of different cultures and languages that can be used. So, you know, we're always mindful of working in partnership with all organisations. It's very much, you know, what we deliver in terms of our training is absolutely tailored to what your requirements are. So have a conversation with us and we can explain to you our experiences. But there's also the positivity posters are available in different languages as well. They've got an Urdu, they've got Welsh, they've got, I can't remember now all the languages, but they've got brilliant symptoms poster which they've had translated into different languages, which is being really well used. And there's Dr. I can never remember her name, that she's often on the BBC. Again, I'll send over a whole heap of links after this to answer all these questions, so you can just connect with people and see what they're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I mean, I'll put some of those ones on the chat, but Leona will send out any kind of resources that we've mentioned on this particular group. Great that we've had obviously Davina McCall's program posted in there, and again lots of MPs. Caroline Notes, she was on that round table with Sophie of Wessex with us wasn't she? So
and Carolyn Harris as well. She's
Carolyn Harris
brilliant.
exactly on there. So there are some absolutely fab ministers that are banging the drum on this. And I think I went to a breakfast at Standard Chartered run a few weeks back on Menopause Day, and Caroline Noakes was there, and she was saying she has to be a very difficult woman, you know, to make menopause one of those protected characteristics. She's going up that route. So, you know, she's a bit like a dog with a bone when it comes to this, which is exactly what we need, because we know the government don't listen to anything anyway. But politics aside, brilliant. So I think we've kind of run out of time. Obviously, Leona will send you the details for you to contact Sharon directly. This has been such a fantastic session. The ladies and the gents have obviously loved it in the chat group. We've opened our eyes to a number of things, and every time I'm with you, I learn something new. For Gender Networks members, you know, we hope you've enjoyed this session. This has been recorded. It will be on the portal, but the portal only. We don't release these ones public. It's just for you members. So anyone that's got access to that portal, you can go back and rewatch this, and it should be up on the portal within a couple of days. Sharon, thanks again. Whilst I've got everyone on, just Gender Networks chairs and co-chairs, Leona sent you the survey link today. And this is the annual survey that we do of all Gender Networks members. Please, please, please complete it. One answer per company. You know, EY are supporting us again with the survey results, but if you don't all complete that, we don't have a good data set in order to help everyone within the group. So Leona would love you if she doesn't have to chase you. It's up the middle of December. So we've got one more session before the end of the year where with Jolie, Pregnant and Screwed, talking about pregnancy discrimination rights. Some of that stuff's going to make your hair curl, but it is absolutely stuff that you guys all need to know as you become more and more inclusive within your networks. So I'll leave you with that. Please connect with Sharon on LinkedIn as well. Thank you, Sharon, once again. Thanks for Leona, and thanks for all of you lot for taking part. Good luck with all your menopause initiatives, and let us know if we can help you in any other way.
Absolutely. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sharon. Take care.
Comments. Thank you.
Speak soon.